Good afternoon, everyone. It's Victoria in Agent Development. I hope you're all having a great Monday. As a reminder, everyone is muted in this format, in the GoToWebinar format. So if you have any questions, feel free to type those into the question panel as we go along. I'll try and keep an eye on them, but I'll definitely be sure to check it at the end to see if anybody has any questions about anything. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen. Yeah, okay, good. We're going to talk about Google Calendar today. I'm going to preface this by saying this is not rocket science, but there's a lot of like little tips and tricks and things that I've picked up over the last couple of years of using Google Calendar. This sort of runs my life, no joke. It's one of the things that I open every day. It's one of the things that I have on my phone as well. So I do really recommend that if you are using your Talker Google Calendar, to download the app on your phone for calendar as well. You can do just about everything that you can do on a desktop on the app, but I'm a big fan of using like the actual Google Calendar app. I gave up my iCalendar a long time ago in favor of the Google Calendar, just because I think it is a little bit more seamless and works with the pieces that I'm looking at on my desktop every day when I come to work every day. And it's a lot nicer than trying to like go through Okta on my phone if you use the actual like Google app. So just go to the App Store, search for Google Calendar, and you can find it, or the Google Play Store, or the not Google. Is that what Androids use? Android Play Store, whatever it is, whatever type of phone you have, go and find the Google Calendar app. Okay, so let's get started. I have already logged in. I'm in my Google Calendar. You can see it here. If you are somebody who is not using your calendar yet or not using it very much, you probably don't have nearly the amount of crazy calendars that I do. So don't let that like get overwhelming or deter you in any way at all. I have a ton of calendars for various different things. You don't have to have as many as me. So over on the left-hand side, you can see that I have all of my calendars listed over here. So here's like the little like month view. And then here are all my calendars. At minimum, you probably have a calendar that is just your name, right? Like, so mine says Victoria, yours would say your name, obviously. And then I have a bunch of other calendars here. You'll see these are all under like the My Calendars heading. That is because these are all calendars that like I have been given, either I have created them, or I've been given ownership, or I have been shared in some capacity that I can make changes and manage the sharing. I'm sort of like an owner or co-owner of these calendars. And then if I scroll down a little bit here, you'll see where it says other calendars. These are calendars that I have been like given access to. So they've been shared with me. Some of them have been shared with me to where I can make changes to those calendars. Some of these calendars, I can just view what's on them, or I might even just be able to see that that person is busy at that particular time. So there's different levels of like permission that you can have for a calendar, or that you can give other people different levels of permission to view any of your calendars at all. So before we get into that, let's just look at some basic like view type things. So real quick, up here at the top, we've got this handy dandy today button. So if you get scrolling through the calendar and you want to come back to today's date, you can always just hit today and it brings you back. So obviously today's Monday the 3rd. But if I scrolled through, a bunch of weeks, hit today, it brings me back. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little drop-down menu to where you can view the calendar differently. So right now, my view is a week at a time, and I have my weekends hidden because this is, typically when I come to work, I just want to see my Monday through Friday. So I like to hide my weekends when I'm here at work, but I can change this. So if I want to show the weekends, I absolutely can. Boom, there they are. Or then if I also want to change, the look, if I want to see, this is a week, if I want to see like just today, there it is. If I want to see for the whole month, there is my whole month of October, right? Pretty straightforward. This search is also super duper handy. Just know that it's there if you're looking for something. you know, like when was that, or who was that, or like Google's very smart. You can search for people, you can search for topics, you can search for maybe I think I know the name of something that was involved, or I know the address of a place that we were at. You can search for them. You can also like filter those searches as well. So just know that those exist up there at the top. All right, so let's talk about creating calendars and sharing calendars. So there's a couple of different things that you can do. I'm going to change my day back to a week because I like that we can see the days a little bit better here. All right, so let's say that I want to just create a new event. I have a couple of different options that I can do. I can click on this, wherever you see like this plus sign in Google, that always means that there's like more action items, more things that you can do. So I can click here to create an event. I can also create things like focus time. So if I don't want people to bug me, the cool thing about this is that, you know, the calendar integrates with Gmail. So like if you're in focus time and somebody tries to like chat you on Gmail, it will show that you're in focus time. It still allows them to like chat you, but it just sort of gives them the heads up. Like if you've noticed, I know in a more recent iPhone update, people can turn on their like do not disturb. So you can still send the text message, right? But it shows like in the text, like, hey, they might not get this right now because they're in a meeting or they have do not disturb on their phone. It's the same sort of thing like on here, which is pretty cool. You can also set out of office hours. You can set your working location, which is a new feature. So if you're like working at the office or you're working at home or you're out and about, you can put different working locations. So if somebody tries to schedule something with you on calendar, they can see like, oh, hey, they're not in the office today. You can also set a task and you can schedule an appointment too. I typically tend to stay with events. Sometimes I will set tasks or reminders as well, but I'm usually just calling things events. So I can click here to create a new event. I can also just click anywhere on the calendar. So I don't know if you saw me do that. Let's say Wednesday at 3 o'clock. I click there. I get a little box that pops up. I can give this, you know, event a title. We'll just call it a test event. Whoops. Test event. And then I can even change like what those things are here. So if I wanted this to be a task or a reminder, and we'll talk more about what those are in a second. But if I wanted to change what these particular things are, I could. Here's where I can change my times. The other cool thing is this, like, right, if I move this, move this guy out of the way. Sorry, I'm on my Mac and I don't have as much room here. So if I move that guy out of the way, I can sort of see what I'm doing over here. I'm going to discard this so and get rid of it. If I click back here, I can also change the time just by like dragging, like clicking and dragging. So if I wanted this to be, 2 hours instead, I just clicked and dragged and I can change the time that way. You can drag events around on the calendar and then drop them where you want them to be. It's pretty, user friendly. So let's go back. This was my test event, right? I can change the time here if I wanted. I can also see where it says does not repeat. If I click on that, I can actually make things repeat. So if I wanted this event to be all day, I could. Does not repeat. I can say I want this to be daily or weekly on Wednesday or the first Wednesday or whatever it is. I can even say custom. And if I click on custom, maybe I want this to happen every, Wednesday for 10 Wednesdays in a row. So maybe I want to have a check-in meeting every Wednesday with my team for the next 10 weeks or something like that. Accountability, whatever it might be, right? I'm not going to make this repeat though. And then I can even click on find a time for like a different event. So like if I had just kind of clicked anywhere on the calendar to create an event and I was like, oh, I'm not sure what else I might have going on, it just allows me to see what that is. Let me pop this guy back out. Okay, here is where I can add guests, which I really love. So let's say I wanted to schedule some type of meeting, or we were having a closing and I wanted to put the closing on my calendar and I wanted to just invite my clients. Totally can. They don't even have to have a Google account. They would still get an email to their Yahoo or their Hotmail or whatever it might be. I can add guests this way. The other really cool thing that I love about this is that if you type in any anybody in the company, you use their Tucker email, it will show you if they have their settings set up. Basically, if they haven't messed with their settings, it'll show you if they're available or not during that time, which I think is pretty awesome. So here's a person that I know has hers set, because I do this all the time. So I added Claire, right? Let me move this guy back out of the way. See all that hot pink that popped up? Those are scheduled times that Claire has on her calendar. So in this instance, here's that dark kind of square is where I was trying to set up that time. I know that she's busy at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, so I'm probably not going to invite her to an event, right? Because I know that she probably can't make it because she already has something on her calendar. I can't see what she's got on her calendar. I can just see that she's busy, so I'm probably not going to invite her, which I love. Obviously, you've probably gotten calendar invites before. When you invite somebody, it allows them to RSVP. They can say yes, no, maybe, whatever it might be. So I'm not gonna add anybody here. If I wanted this to be virtual, I can add a Google Meet right here. It creates a Google Meet link. When it sends them the calendar invite, they can see that Google Meet and they can click on it, and then we can meet, virtually and not have to be together in the same room. I can add rooms though. I can add a relocation. Rooms is just going to be all of the rooms in the company at Tucker. So like if you wanted to reserve a room, I would check in with the admin for that particular building though, to see like when I click on available rooms, it automatically shows me what's available here at the Agent Support Center. But I would absolutely check in with like the admin at a branch office if you were wanting to use their conference room, because they may or may not use this system to book rooms. We do here at the Agent Support Center. I actually kind of keep an eyeball on the room calendar so I know if somebody has a room booked or not. But just check in, just know that that's what that is. The other nice thing though is add location. So if this was an event that I was going to meet somebody at a restaurant or a closing or something, I can start typing in the location. It uses Google Maps and it's going to find that info for me. I can add a description, right? I can create meeting notes. I can even add attachments. So if I needed to throw like a PDF or something in here, I totally could. I can click on add description and I can start typing. So I could leave myself notes, or I could leave the other people that I'm inviting to this event notes, right? I can change my calendar here. So we'll talk about like creating more calendars in a second, but maybe I didn't want this to be on my personal Victoria calendar. I wanted this to be on the Agent Development Center planning calendar that KB and I share. I could change that here. Boom. All of my calendars have default different colors, but then if I wanted something to be in even more of a different color, something that was like super important, I could change it, like make it bright red, make it tomato, or something like that. Let's leave it on my Victoria calendar though, right? And then this just allows people to see if I'm free or busy. I don't ever change these. I don't ever change my default visibility. I like this 10 minutes before I get like a little notification that I have an event, coming up. I don't ever change these either. You get a little pop-up on your computer, and then if you have it enabled on your phone, you get a little pop-up like, hey, you have this thing in 10 minutes. You can add more notifications if you want though. But usually, generally, I'm just giving things a title and a time and hitting save, right? And I'm like, boom, that thing is on my calendar for Wednesday the 5th from 3 to 5. I know that I have something happening now. I may or may not have invited other people. Awesome. Okay, so there's how to like create just like an event. Let's talk about creating calendars and how you can share calendars and what type of permission that you can give for different people. Okay, so I'm not going to come up here. This is just going to be to create like on the calendar. I know that can be a little confusing. I'm going to come down here and there's a smaller plus sign next to where it says other calendars. So there's a little one right here that says add other calendars. When I hover over it, I'm going to click on that guy and it's going to say basically like, what do you want to do? Generally, I am either going to subscribe to a calendar, maybe, or I'm going to create a new calendar if I want to be the owner of this calendar, right? Shameless plug. If I click on subscribe to calendar, I can then basically ask other people like, hey, can I view your calendar in a different way? If you haven't already, this is my shameless plug, Tucker Training, at talktotucker.com. Whoops, I shouldn't have clicked on it. Sorry. I'm the owner of it. So if I go to subscribe to calendar and Tucker training, there it is. If you type in Tucker training at talktotucker.com, it will subscribe you to our training calendar. I put all of our classes on the training calendar. So if at any time you're sort of wondering like, hey, what are those people in training doing? When is there a class about this? All of the info is on the calendar. And I'll show you when we go back in a second, I'll show you what that looks like. But just know you can subscribe. This is my shameless plug. I'll get off of it now. All right, so let's come back down here where it says other calendars, and I click the plus sign, and I can say create new calendar. And I'm just gonna call this one test as well, but give it whatever name. Maybe you are, you're on a team and you wanna have a team calendar. Maybe you want to share a calendar with a spouse or a partner. I know some agents who would do that, and then, if they were hosting an open house or they were meeting clients, they would put all that info on their calendar. So with the event, they would say, I'm meeting them at 123 Main Street or whatever it might be, so that the other person in their relationship, not so much to like check up on that person, but just like a safety precaution, right? Like, oh, hey, yeah, I see you have an appointment at 3, or they're at XYZ, open house, and they just have the address, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to say create new calendar. I'm just going to call it a test. If I wanted to add a description here, I could. I generally don't find that I find myself doing that. So I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to hit create. Then there's a little box down at the bottom. It's going to pop up. There it is. It says test successfully created. And I'm going to click on configure right here. And then it's going to give me all of the info and the settings for just this particular calendar. All right. I don't really mess with this too much. This is where make available to FC Tucker Company, only see free or busy. So this is how when I looked up Claire, I could see that she had busy times. If I wanted, I could allow people to see all my event details, but I don't really want that, right? So I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm not going to change anything here. And then this is where I could start sharing with other people. So maybe this is a calendar that I want to share with KB, right? There he is right at the top. I'm going to put his name in. I could keep adding people if I wanted. Actually, let me add Lisa Jackson too. So I want both of them in here. And then this is where I have the ability to change the permission level of these folks to view this calendar. Maybe all I want them to be able to do is see the event details. I don't want them to be able to edit it. I don't want them to be able to delete or add or change anything. I just want them to be able to see it. I could leave it as is. But if I click on this drop-down menu, I have more options. So again, if I just want them to be able to see when I'm free or I'm busy, I could do that. I could let them see everything. I could let them make changes to events and be able to add or delete things to the calendar. I could then also give them permission to not only make changes, but manage sharing, meaning that they could share this calendar with other people, right? If I give them managed sharing capabilities, that's where something becomes like a my calendar versus like other calendars. So in this instance, let's just say make changes to events. And can I give them a little note here? I cannot, which is kind of a bummer, but they would get an email that says, hey, you've been invited. I'm gonna take Lisa off. I'm just gonna send this to Carrie. Okay, and then I could keep adding people here as well. And then I can even change their permission level at any time if I want. I can also remove people too. So like I can get rid of him. There's a little X here. I don't want Carrie to be able to have access anymore. Boom, I took him off. He can't see it, okay? If I keep scrolling a little bit, I can change notifications. I generally don't though. And then that's really kind of the big thing. And then down here at the bottom, if I wanted to delete this calendar altogether, I could. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say delete. Do I want to delete it? If you delete it, it deletes it from anybody else who might have access. Say permanently delete, just because I don't need it on here. Boom. But that's how you can create a new calendar and give people access to it, whether you just want them to be able to view it or you want them to be able to make changes, you can do it that way. I'm going to hit this little back arrow up here next to settings and go back to my main dashboard. And here it is. okay? So obviously anything that's in bright yellow is like my personal calendar, right? It's the stuff that I'm putting on here. Let's say that I wanted to be able to let Carrie see my calendar, my personal calendar. All I got to do is come over here to the list of calendars on the left. And when I hover over a calendar, see, I get those 3 little dots, gives me more options. It's another action item. So I can click on that. What do I want to do? I can just display this only if I wanted. I could change the color of my calendar here. You can even hit the little plus sign if you want to add like custom colors and get like really into it. But settings and sharing will allow me to come back to these options. So here are the calendar settings for like my personal like Victoria calendar. This is where I could add other people. So nobody has access to my Victoria calendar here, but again, like if I wanted Carrie to be able to see it, I could, or make changes to it, whatever it might be, right? Okay, so that's it there. I'm gonna hit that back button again. And I'm gonna come down here. I told you guys that I keep the room calendars. That's what all these like O1 agent support are. So let me go to next week, because I think next week is just a little bit better of an idea. Okay, so here's my calendar for next week. If I don't want to see all of this, I can just unclick them, right? Like I'm going to uncheck them. You'll notice this dark green color here that shows like we have fuel next week. The dark green is just booking the room, the training room for those days so that nobody else has another event in the training room. If I don't want to see that, I can uncheck it. Boom, it goes away. Same thing with like event planning. You'll notice that this is sort of like across all of these days. If you have a multi-day event, that's why it's like a line up across the top instead of like these individual boxes on my day. We just try to keep note of like when fall break is happening and things like that, of, you know, trying to keep in mind of scheduling classes and things like that. We're not always successful, but we try. So that's why that's like a line across the top here. It's just a multi-day event. And so instead of like blocking out each day, it's just showing like, hey, this is happening Monday through Friday. So let me get rid of the ADC planning, get rid of that. Down here where it says other calendars, I don't usually keep these checked a lot. So like I can see Beth Gabrick's calendar. She doesn't have much going on next week. It doesn't look like, or maybe she just hasn't put anything on her calendar yet. If I click on KB's, his is bright blue, boom. To see, I can see all of the stuff on Carrie's calendar. I can also make changes to his calendar. I have that level of permission, but I can't share his calendar with other people. That's why it's still down here under other calendars. So let's hide his calendar. So now we are basically only looking at my Victoria calendar, which is in yellow. I've got a red reminder up here. And then anything that's in this sort of like, I don't know, taupey, not quite gray, it's not quite tan color, is the Tucker training calendar. So this is why I put in that shameless plug of subscribe to the Tucker training calendar, because we will put a bunch of stuff on here. And so you can see like what's happening. And then the nice thing is that you can turn it off. So you're like, training, I don't need to see your calendar all the time. I just want to be able to know like when you guys have something going on, you can turn it on, you can take a peek. If you click on any of these, I give you more info about what this particular class is about. I will also give you the registration links. Once it has happened, let's go to an old event here. Let's see, coaching for last week. I will change it from a registration link to a watch again link. So if you missed any of the coaching, this is a place where you can find those recordings. You can also find them in the course catalog, but they're also on the calendar too. So if you missed something and you're like, hey, I just want to watch it again, you can find those links here. So let's go back to next week, because it's a good snapshot of kind of like some stuff we have going on. So again, if I click on any of these, it gives you more information. We'll give you registration links. Okay. Let's say that you register for one of these classes and you're like, well, training, no offense, I don't want to see your calendar all the time. Like, I'm not coming to Fuel next week, but I want to do this virtual tech stack training. I want to add that to my calendar. You totally can. So if I click on this event, And I'm like, okay, yes, I definitely want to do this. I'm going to come down. I'm going to make sure I register for the correct date, but I want to put it on my calendar. Up here at the top, there are 3 little dots. You won't see, I can edit this event because I own this event. You won't be able to see some of these, but you should be able to see these 3 little dots. If I click on that, what do I want to do? In this instance, let's say I wanted to take this class and I wanted it to be on my calendar. I would say copy to Victoria Thomas. So you would say copy to whatever your name is. You would see there your calendar. I can copy it. It's going to say, hey, here's this event. I can make any changes to it. Those are only changes that I'm making to my personal event. You can't make changes like to my training calendar. But I'm like, yep, I have all this info in here. Fantastic. Save it. And then notice how it popped up here in yellow on my calendar. So then I'm like, okay, training, I'm going to turn your calendar off. Boom. It's still here on my calendar. And now I know that on Thursday, the 13th, I'm going to be sure that I take this tech stack training class because I've got it on my calendar. Awesome. All right. And then again, if I'm like, nope, you know what, can't make it anymore, I can click on this. I can edit it. I can also delete it. Boom. I will be there anyway. I don't need to put it on my calendar. I've got it on the training calendar already. So there's how to add an event. Like if you already see it on a calendar, you can copy it and put it onto your own calendar. All right, let's talk about some of these reminders and tasks. So they do have to be turned on in order to use them. If I turn these off, I can't make a task or a reminder. So I'm going to turn them on. And then it's the same kind of thing. I go and I create an event. I tend to put my reminders up here so they're at the top, and it doesn't matter like what time during the day that I do them. I just know that like on Monday, I need to send an email to the Fuel class of just a reminder of like, hey, class starts tomorrow. Don't forget, come at this time, yada, yada. So it doesn't really matter like what time on Monday I send this. So I just do it as like an all day reminder. If I didn't want it to be all day, I could change it. So see, I have it like set as an all day. So again, I can click anywhere on the calendar, or I can come up here and I can see create new. I'm just going to like click. And then this is where I can change it to a reminder. And it's exactly what it says it is. See how now it's like a little, it's kind of hard to see, but if I zoom in, it's like a little finger with a little string tied around it, like reminder, you need to do this. If you don't do it, if I don't mark it as done on Monday, guess what? It shows up on Tuesday. So it follows you as like a little, hey, you haven't done this yet. Hey, you haven't done this yet. I can set it to repeat if I want. Otherwise, I can just like say like, I'm just going to call it a test reminder. If I say all day, if I don't say all day, it can say, I can put it as a certain time, like, hey, do this at X time. But I could say all day and I could save it. Then it shows me that I have 2 reminders here and I can click and the same thing. So I'm like, okay, I can edit this if I need to, I can delete it, or I can mark it as done that I did it and it goes away. Okay. So reminders stay like on your calendar. They're not necessarily like events though. So you can't put as much detail as where all of these other things are events. It's just literally a reminder like, hey, do this thing. The other thing that you can do are tasks. And tasks are very similar to reminders, except that they can follow you from one platform to another, which can be helpful. So let's say I want to create a task instead. So I just click wherever I want on the calendar. You can give it a name, call it test, task. And I'm going to say that it's a task. And then same thing, I can give it a time. I can add a description, and then I'm going to make sure that it's on my task. So send reminder email about fuel. And I'm going to save this baby. Now you'll see the little icon for this is like a little check mark instead of a little finger, right? If I click on this, I can say I can mark it as complete. I can say that I did it. But let me see if it showed up over here. It did. So on the left-hand side of your screen, no, I lied. The right-hand side of your screen, you have a little like bar over here that may or may not show up when you're in Calendar. There's a little, you can hide the side panel. So I can pop it out or I can hide it. In this little side panel, you've got maps, you have contacts, and then you also have, you can put Google Keep in here, which I'm a big fan of, that's a different class. You also have tasks here, so I can see my tasks like here in the calendar. The other cool thing though, is that if I go into my email, I have that same bar over here on the right-hand side, so I can click on this and I can load those tasks. There we go. Here's that task that came from my calendar. And so I can see what that task is here. I can mark it as done, and then boom, it's gone. So that's what I mean that it can follow you from one platform to another. Reminders don't do that, but your tasks can. So I can create a task list. I can create it here in Google or in my Gmail, right? So I can like come to my inbox and I can create tasks here and they will show up on my calendar, and then vice versa. You just saw me create it on my calendar. It showed up in my inbox. And then I can see those from both places and I can mark them as done. So if I go back to my calendar now, see it's crossed out, it's been marked as done. So that's just another thing that you can use. I don't tend to use tasks use tasks too much. That's mostly just because I'm still like a pen and paper kind of person. I have a planner and I usually write down like my to-do lists on paper. It's kind of satisfying to like cross them off. But I do use these reminders a lot, because I will plan stuff out. A great example is fuel. So like tomorrow I need to send the class like email number 1 with like the basic stuff. So I'll go onto the calendar and I'll look and I'll sort of work backwards of like, okay, I need to send them, an email the day before and a week before, and sometimes even 2 weeks before when we have other types of classes. I just give myself a reminder to follow up with the class and like send them the info that they need. Again, I can turn any of these on and off if I want to see them. We went over that. We went over how to create a calendar. You're going to come down to other calendars, hit that plus button. You can subscribe to the training calendar, but otherwise you're going to come down here and you're going to say create new. And then that allows you to create the calendar. You can then invite others to view the calendar, make changes to your calendar, whatever you might want to do. The other spot up here, there's a little like gear icon. There's a few more settings that you can do in here. If I click on that, I can click on settings. And it gives me a couple other things that I can do. I can set my time. I can set event settings, like the default when you click on the calendar and you want to create a new event, the default is 60 minutes. You can change that if you want. You can change any of these notification settings as well. You can change your view options. So like even if somebody invites me to something and I say, no, I can't make it, I still like it to show up on my calendar. It just has a line through it, like it's kind of grayed out, or it's not gray, but it's like not as bright, and it will be like have lines through it. If you're like, nope, I don't even want to see that, you can uncheck that. You can not show declined events. Shorter events show up as like the same as a 30-minute event. So like sometimes if it's only like 15 minutes, it can just be like really tiny on the calendar and a little bit harder to see. I have it set that it looks like a 30-minute chunk on the calendar, even if it's not. The other thing that I really love that's here in settings is this one, where it says reduce the brightness of past events. I'm very visual, and my eyeball likes to go to the next thing that's happening, and so I have reduced the brightness of past events. So as the day goes, things that have already happened get sort of, it's not grayed out, but it's just exactly what it says it is. It's like not as bright. You might have noticed that on my calendar. I'll point it out when we go back. You can change when your week starts. You can set a custom view if you want. So you could do like 4 days or 5 or 2 weeks at a time. If you wanted to view 2 weeks at a time, you totally could. And then the last thing that's kind of down here at the bottom, this is that new one where you can set working hours and location. So I can say that my hours are 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 5 or 8:30 to 6 or whatever they might be. So if somebody tries to invite you to an event outside of those like working hours, it'll just tell them they can still invite you, but it says that it's outside of your working hours. And then this is where you can change your location as well. So for agents, it might not be, you know, as applicable. You guys are in and out of the office a lot. But for me, some days I'm in the office, some days I might be at, you know, the Fisher's office or the downtown office or whatever. So I could say that I'm working at this spot or that spot. It gives you, like, you can say I'm in the office, I'm at home, I'm unspecified, another office, or I can pick somewhere else. So I can set any of those. You can also change them on the fly, which is pretty nice. And then that's kind of it there. If you make any changes, you don't actually have to save it. It'll save it for you. If I go back here. So this is a great example. You can see this red line. This shows us where we're at for the day. You can see these events that have already happened today are like not as bright. And then once we get through the whole day of Monday, my whole Monday will be like dulled out. So if you look at like last week's calendar, let me turn some more like colors on, turn some of these on. But you can see that stuff is not quite as bright last week because it's over, as this week is much brighter, okay? And then here's how you can change your location on the fly. If I hover over any of these days, see, I get these little like pin drops, like what it looks like on a map. I can click on that and I can set my working location for my personal calendar. And then I have the ability also, I can edit the training calendar and Carrie's calendar. So I could set the working locations for those as well if I wanted. So maybe I was working from home on Tuesday. I could say I'm working from home. And then if somebody tries to, again, invite me to an event, they can see where I'm at. All right, but I'm not going to save that because I'm not working at home tomorrow. I will be here. Well, I'll be in Greenfield in the morning, apparently, because it's on my calendar, right? In the training department, we are big proponents of saying that if you don't have it on the calendar, you're not going to do it, right? So use this however you want. I think that like a lot of people talk about like block scheduling, right? Like blocking out time to do certain things. That would be a great way to use this guy, like the focus time. You can automatically say to decline meetings. If I just save it here, I know that like I'm in focus time, and maybe I even can tell myself, I can give it a description, right, of like what I need to work on. So maybe this is, I'm taking 2 hours and I'm calling the people that I need to call for the week, or I'm writing the note cards that I need to write for the week, or I'm doing prospecting activities, or whatever it might be, where I'm focusing specifically on this task and not taking phone calls or not talking to the other people in the office or whatever it might be. So use your calendar. You can use it for, you know, blocking out time, scheduling time, however really you like. You can put all kinds of stuff on here. If you're sharing a calendar with another person, again, you can put, you know, where you're at, where they're at, group stuff. A lot of the offices I know have office calendars, so you could subscribe, again, come down here and you could subscribe to the office calendar. That way, you know, if you have sales meetings or other events or client appreciation or whatever it might be, whatever's happening in that office. Okay. That's really all that I have. We're done, I think, a little bit early today, but it's not, like I said, it's not rocket science. I think these are just, if you get in the good habit of using the calendar, sharing with the appropriate people, putting things on here, hopefully your life will run a little bit smoother. Like I said, my calendar runs my life. I come here every day. Honestly, I think this is a bad habit, but one of the first things I do when I get up in the morning is check my calendar. What do I have first on the docket for the day? So that might be a bad habit. Maybe I should get out of bed before I do that. But anyway, I don't see any questions. I'll hang around here just for a second. Anybody have anything, any burning desire you want to know about? Or anybody have any other hot tips, something that you love that I missed? No? Okay. Well, I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your Monday. You know where to find me in agent development if anything does pop up. Have a good one, everyone.